Hi, I'm John Mallows. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV. On this Friday morning, we're going to be talking Keith Foster, the former deputy police chief right here in the city of Fresno, with an expert in the house. He's a local attorney, been around here for more than 30, well, almost 30 years. Let's put it that way. 436-ME-TV, option 11. We'll have your phone calls today, including from our guest to his comments. Keith Foster, the topic today. Back in a moment.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
That's right, we do have an expert in the house today, and he's a local attorney, well known, of course, in these parts, been around for a long time, so we'll get his take on the Keith Foster situation. But just a quick programming note from Monday. We've got Rick Bentley coming into the studio to talk about a couple of things, and then on Tuesday we've got a business segment. So stay tuned for that. So, Bentley, he recently was released by the Fresno Bee. All kinds of changes over there, including changes all up and down the McClatchy chain, changes at the Sacramento Bee as well. So we'll find out what Rick Bentley is going to be up to here in the next few months. For now, you're watching us live on Comcast, channel 375 as usual. It's Comcast Cable, daily talk show, 10 to 11 o'clock. It's a call-in program. If you don't have Comcast, it's 13.1, 43.6 over-the-air broadcast with a digital outdoor television antenna. Then the replay of this program comes up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube, 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. And before I get into the program tonight, the Golden State Warriors certainly have an opportunity to make history tonight. 16-0 if they win it. They'll sweep the series if they win tonight's game. A completely different team than they were a year ago when they faced LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavs. They've got the addition of Kevin Durant. And, of course, last year, the two people that did not have a good series, one was Draymond Green, who was suspended for one game. You might recall that a year ago. And Harrison Barnes, who was no longer on the team. He was dreadful last year. This year it's completely different, and let's hope that they can turn it around and just wrap it up tonight and get it over with. I know the TV networks won't like it because they're making money on this. Hand over fist, there's no question. We'll see what happens tonight in Cleveland. Anyway, I don't know if you checked out today's front page of the Fresno Bee. It's pretty incredible. An opinion piece on the front page of the Fresno Bee is convicted cop Foster delusional or just trying to dodge prison. That is the front page of the Bee. Bill McEwen writes the opinion piece. You might want to check it out. And so he is facing, of course, Keith Foster, not McEwen, 25 years in prison because he was found guilty on 2 felony counts. I want to put the picture up on the screen and do a little timeline for you here. This was an unusual trial, to say the least, and you have to ask yourself, was Foster and his attorney Marshall Hodgkins on the same page? In early May, as you see here on this front page of the Bee, his lawyer told the jury that Foster was working deep undercover as an investigator when he was wiretapped by the feds. Foster was heard talking about buying marijuana, but Police Chief Jerry Dyer and other officers who testified during the trial said, no, that's not possible. They would have known about it otherwise. Change it. On May 23rd, Foster was found guilty on drug dealing charges, 2 felonies for conspiring to distribute heroin and marijuana, but he was acquitted on 6 other charges. Then on May 26, we learned that Foster will in fact keep his $93,000 a year police pension. All of this despite the conviction. This fact alone outraged many in the community, including some city council members. This is taxpayer money, and one has to wonder if Foster will be a target if he goes to prison because of the money he'll roll in. Then, just a couple of days ago, look at this, the front page. More revelations. Foster firing his attorney, Hodgkins, hiring a new one, Michael McNeely, who hopes to get a new trial. Foster is scheduled to be sentenced in October, but a lot could happen between now and then. The question is, my friends, and all you viewers out there, call in and maybe answer this question. Have you lost confidence in the Fresno Police Department? Well, Police Chief Jerry Dyer had his own opinion shortly after Foster was arrested 2 years ago.
I have complete trust in the members of the Fresno Police Department. I think it is a sad day when we allow an isolated incident to cause us to lose confidence in mankind, and I refuse to do that. I trust my members of this police department, and I trust my staff. We have measures in place that regulate their behavior. We hire people from the human race, and we promote people from the human race, and they make decisions. Sometimes those decisions are bad, sometimes they use bad judgment, and sometimes those decisions that they make result in criminal misbehavior. And that's the allegations that we have before us today. But I refuse to allow this incident to cause me to lose faith or confidence or trust in this police department.
Live in our studio now is Peter Kapetan. He's an expert, a local attorney for nearly 30 years here in the city of Fresno. He followed the Keith Foster trial with Marshall Hodgkins, and now the new attorney that's coming on, McNeely. Foster, is he delusional? You got to read today's Fresno Bee. It makes one kind of chuckle when you read this thing out loud. It really does, and we'll get Peter's opinion, but we also want your opinion. Call in at 436-MeTV, option 11. We're back with our program here on a Friday morning, right before the weekend and right before Golden State's Game 4 as they try to sweep the Cavs. Back in a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Whirlpool appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Touch the new Whirlpool Ice Collection. It offers a modern style made to create an inspiring kitchen experience. Save big on this Whirlpool Black Ice or White Ice kitchen. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Not sure what you're watching? Want to see what's coming up next? Or just want to browse what's on without the hassle of flipping channels? Your wish has come true. Now you can view schedules for all the digital TV channels available in the Central Valley. Get local weather updates and forecasts, and listen to nationally syndicated Biz Talk Radio, all on KVHF 4.1. Rescan your TV now, then tune in to digital channel 4.1 to start enjoying the all-new TV guide.
Back here on the program, 436-MeTV, option 11. Excuse me. Peter Kapetan is here. Good to see you this morning, Peter.
Nice being here, Joe.
How are
Thank you.
Hey, we were talking in the break here a little bit about Warriors, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. I still think Michael Jordan was the greatest of all time. I never seen anybody better than him, but I ain't a LeBron fan. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Absolutely, Jordan was the best, but I'm a Bulls fan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're a Bulls fan because?
Absolutely. My family's from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you love Pippen and
all of them.
Jordan and who else? What's his name?
I'm drawing blank on the crazy guy.
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis
Rodman, the nut.
Well, we loved him when he played for Chicago, not for Detroit, though.
Well, I thought Dennis Rodman was pretty entertaining. I think this Keith Foster trial is entertaining as well. And I've got to read to you out of the Fresno Bee, just briefly here. And maybe, Carrie, if you could, we have 5 courtroom pictures, all courtesy of the Fresno Bee. I want to give them credit here because they have a courtroom, an artist rendition of what Foster was doing in the court. Go ahead and put those up, Carrie. You can stay on this for about 10, 15 seconds each. We have about 5 of them. Let me read this. I suppose there's a chance that Keith Foster, the Fresno deputy police chief turned drug dealer, is delusional and really believes he did nothing wrong. Or could it be that that's just another crook trying to get off scot-free? That's an opinion from Bill McEwen. What do you make of not only that opinion piece, but of this trial overall, Peter?
Well, it's kind of funny. I told you before we went on the air today, I was talking to a couple officer friends of mine 2 days before that opinion came out, and I used the very same word. I said, is Keith delusional? Because he just doesn't seem to be getting a grasp of reality as to what's going on. As far as the overall case, I think I got the opinion that most people have is it's really sad for the city. I don't know how you cannot lose some faith in your police department when the second in command is accused of dealing narcotics and heroin to make matters worse. So I think it's just a sad commentary on everything as far as the state of the police department here in Fresno.
And so from your, I mean, you're a trial lawyer, and you have been for many years. You've represented defendants. What you talk to a lot of people. The people that you come in contact with on a daily basis, have they seemed to have lost maybe a little bit of confidence in Fresno PD?
Yes, I think it's strange. From inside the department, I think a lot of it's really hurt morale, because I think a lot of the line officers are saying, you know, if our top commanders are being convicted of crimes while we're out there trying to fight it, what does that mean? What are we doing out here? So I think it's lost, a lot of people within inside the community have lost a lot of respect, and morale has gone down. As far as outside the community, I think it just shakes people's confidence in our law enforcement and the ability for them to effectively and correctly enforce the law.
Interesting. I want to put up. Let's see here. We got so many videos here and so many photos and so many things I want to ask you about. And the one I want to put up specifically, we saw it in the monologue. And let's put up the newspaper photo that says Foster undercover, because I want to ask you about this. During the trial, he claimed that he was not working undercover. That's when he got on the witness stand. But his attorney Hodgkins basically said, "Hey, look, my client is innocent. He's not guilty. He's a cop. He was working undercover. He was getting information. He was passing it on to our investigators." And yet he goes on the stand and says, "I was not working undercover. I was just feeding information to some of our officers on this."
Yeah, that frankly,
as an attorney, how do you look at that?
yeah, that was the most amazing aspect of this, and it's going to be interesting with his new attorney also. When you go in to present a trial as a criminal defense attorney, it's not something that you just take, you know, that morning you get up and say, okay, what am I going to say? You put a lot of effort into it. Marshall Hodgkins is a very good attorney. And I know him, but I'm not personal friends with him, but he's got a very good reputation, and he put a lot of work into this case like any attorney would going into a trial. And so when he got up in his opening statement and said that Keith Foster was working deep undercover, that wasn't something he just came up with. That wasn't something he created. That is something that he talked to his client about for a long time. And that was going to be the theme of their case. And frankly, I think what happened was once that became public as to that was going to be his defense, I can only imagine that some of his friends called him and said, you know, what the heck are you thinking, in a little stronger language, because that just is a ridiculous argument. I mean, but if you're the attorney, you got to go with what your client's telling you. And so
you would think, though, that they would have numerous conversations, client and the attorney. I mean, he was arrested in 2015. I'm not sure when he hired Hodgkins as his attorney, but you would think there would be just multiple times when they had a chance to talk about what's going on before the trial. How could there be such miscommunication?
I don't think there was any miscommunication. I think that was what Foster was telling him was the defense. And then after it came out and after he heard it and saw it being played out in the light of day, he realized that's not going to fly. And you got to appreciate a criminal defense attorney's position in this case. When I was a DA, we used to laugh that you don't catch the smart ones, okay? Your client comes in and tells you, this is my story. And it's not like people think. We don't tell them what to say. We don't create stories for them. We're there to present their case, and we're there to put the best spin we can on their case, frankly. But if he's telling his attorney that this is what I was doing, I was working deep undercover, I was acting as a super spy for the police department, then that's your defense, and that's what he's got to go with. And I'm sure Marshall Hodgkins probably told him a bunch of times that really doesn't make a lot of sense. That doesn't. That I don't know how we're going to make that fly. But given all the evidence they had against him, he's got to do something, and that's what he presented.
Hang on, caller. Yeah. I don't know. I just found that to be the most, like you say, the most stunning part of that entire trial was the fact that he just contradicted his attorney. How often do you see that, by the way, in a courtroom?
I've never seen it. I've never seen.
Really?
I have never seen a attorney get up and make an affirmative statement in the opening statement portion of the case, and then to have a client get up and completely deny it.
If a client had done that to you, what would you have done?
We would have had some conversations after court.
Would you have blocked? Would you have just
Well,
walked away from that trial? Or?
No, you can't at that point. You're stuck. You're in.
By law, you're stuck?
Yeah.
Okay.
But what really would bother me about that is part of our trade is people trusting us, and I really take a strong point on that. Is when I tell a jury something, I expect to have the evidence to back that up. Because that's what your trade is to have people trust you, and for him to undercut the trust that you just told the jury, that's inconceivable. And I mean, it didn't help his case, obviously, but I would take that personally.
So in the 30 years you've been practicing, you haven't seen it, and explain the hang on, caller, get to you in a moment. Explain your obligation now. If you're representing a client, you can't just walk away. Is it like a signed agreement or what with the court or who?
Well, no, the court wouldn't let you walk away because by that point the trial started and you got to continue with the trial.
Can you ask the judge, I'd like to withdraw from this case?
Yeah, you could. You could ask the judge that there's now a conflict, that you don't think you can effectively represent the client, but realistically that wouldn't fly in a case like this.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to go forward with it. I've had clients get up and say things I didn't expect them to say. That happens all the time. But to have them directly contradict what you presented to the jury, I've never seen that happen. I think that's why people were stunned by it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, I guess that's why this piece is even more, to a certain extent, rather humorous, because it just brings to light that if Marshall Hodgkins was such a bad attorney, he's changing attorneys. The piece also alluded to this. If he's such a bad attorney, then how come 6 of the other charges they were deadlocked on? And it was like 7-5, and he was not found guilty on any of those except for 2.
Right. No, I think Marshall, and I didn't watch the trial every day,
Yeah.
but I think he did a yeoman's work. He did a great job on this case. The evidence that they had against Foster for him to hang 6 of the charges, that's pretty incredible in and of itself.
Yeah, amazing, considering they had the guy on tape.
No, absolutely.
Caller, you're on the air with Peter Kapetan. Go ahead.
Yeah, Peter, let me direct the question to you. I know for a fact, like Foster was well known, and him to say that he's undercover for whatever reasons, that's ludicrous, number one. I would have never said that, because any undercover officer or whatever is someone that's not known in areas that he knows. Because he was well known everywhere. So how can he say that he was an undercover doing this for whatever reason? That's number one. That's a lie. Okay. No undercover person, as well known as Foster, would have said that, or even his lawyer should have said, "Don't say anything." Let me take care of it. But he comes out and says, that's really what the trial was about, undercover and this and that. He blew it right there and then by saying that, because I know for a fact, because I've been around and gangs and all that. When you put an undercover, it's someone they don't know and eventually will trust. And that's my only feeling, that once he said that, his credibility was gone, So as a lawyer, like you say, you may not leave and all that. The only way maybe he would want to is get rid of the lawyer and start with another lawyer. He's gonna, kind of delay it. So really, that's all I want to let you know, Peter. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thanks, caller. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, no, and the caller, I mean, and obviously he's, from what his comments were, he's not a professional in this area, but even to him it was pretty obvious. That's one of the problems they've had in Fresno. I used to be at the DA's office almost 30 years ago, and one of the problems they had at the police department was they didn't have enough African American officers to go do drug investigations on the west side, because most of the officers were from Fresno. And Fresno, despite it being large, is still a small community. And the problem they had is these guys who grew up on the west side, everybody on the west side knew them, and everybody knew that they had become police officers, so they couldn't work undercover. Foster's family, he's got I think his uncle was a heavyweight prize fighter at one time who fought Ali. I mean,
Really?
They were huge. Yeah, the Foster family is a huge family and well known on the west side. And
well
so,
known in Fresno, though. pretty
yes,
much.
yeah. And so, I think he had limited undercover experience for that very reason. Everybody knew him. And so for him to come up now and say that he was working undercover, I think that's what people found ridiculous. And the proof's in the pudding that once they actually stated that in the opening statements, the story quickly changed after that to say, okay, I wasn't undercover. I was working, getting tips, collecting tips.
I mean, Foster wasn't as well known as Jerry Dyer, but pretty close. I mean, people knew who he was. He was always with Dyer, at his side, at news conferences. People knew who he was. And the fact is, and talk about, I got to go to break, but the protocol in the police department is you, generally speaking, correct me if I'm wrong, don't have high-profile officers doing undercover?
No, absolutely. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. Peter Kapetan is here talking about the Keith Foster case. The opinion piece is in the Bee today. Bill McEwen. It's quite comical if you want to check it out. 436-ME-TV option 11. We do have an open phone line if you want to call in right now and offer your opinion. Back in a moment.
The Justice Network is here. If you haven't tuned in, you're missing a great lineup of gripping stories of real crime, plus an unprecedented effort by viewers like you to play an active role in making your community safer. You can help support law enforcement by providing information that may lead to the apprehension of dangerous criminals or find a missing child. Great shows and your chance to fight crime, only on the Justice Network.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Hope as far as sentencing is concerned that, as the judge indicated at the end, that his lifelong work for law enforcement in the community will have some type of impact here. I'll simply tell you the only word that is coming in my mind right now is tragedy.
So Marshall Hodgkins talking after the trial, of course, over, and that courtesy of the Fresno Bee, and you were talking here in the break. So his uncle was Mac Foster that fought Muhammad Ali way back when. I kind of do and don't remember that, but go ahead.
Correct. Yeah, no, Mac was he was a big-time prize fighter in his day, and he was really good. And it's his uncle. They're related. I think it's his uncle, but they're definitely related.
You wouldn't want to mess with Mac Foster.
No, not at all. You wouldn't want to mess with Keith. He's a big man.
No, I wouldn't want to mess with him either. But I do want to roll a piece of videotape, and I want to get back to this Jerry Dyer thing. Let's roll if we can, Carrie. Dyer B-roll. This is the reaction on Jerry Dyer's face 2 years ago when the feds came out in the news conference and they announced that Foster had been arrested. Look at the look on Dyer's face. Peter, I mean, look at this. Watch as they zoom in. It's going to zoom in. Check it out. So when one looks at this piece of videotape, there's the zoom in right there. He looks like he lost his best friend. Never seen Dyer so down and drab about the whole thing. You can understand why. But, getting back to the police department, how is it many people have called this show before? This is not the first Keith Foster show we've done. We've had people call in and say, how could Jerry Dyer have not known about it? He doesn't know what's going on right under his nose. He's best friends with Keith Foster for how many years? His office is right next to him. He shadows Jerry Dyer. And he knows nothing about it? How can that? I know you're not a mind reader. I know you don't know the inside, but do you find that unusual?
I don't know, unusual. That's one of the big mysteries, I think, with guys inside the department. You got to understand that they're both about the same age. They grew up in the department together. I mean, so it wasn't...
Were they patrol cops together?
I don't know if they were patrol cops together or if Jerry was always, Chief Dyer was always a little ahead of him.
Okay.
But they grew up and they were close, and they were so close that when it came time to appoint his second in command, he appointed Keith Foster as his second in command. So they have a really close relationship, and I think that is part of the morale issue that people within the department are thinking the same thing you're thinking, or speculating. How did he not know what else is going on here? I guess the best answer was Chief Dyer would be the best one to answer that question.
Yeah, call in and weigh in on this. 436-ME-TV option 11. And it begs back to the question, do you trust the Fresno Police Department after this incident? Foster arrested it's hard to believe it was 2 years ago. This is 2017. Let's put up the full screen. It's called Foster Background. And this is kind of a timeline on Keith Foster's career. So as you can see, the last, 30 years or so, he's really moved up the ranks there, Peter.
Yeah, he sure has. And I was at the DA's office. I actually had him on a few cases when I was at the DA's office in 90 through about 93. He was an undercover officer on one of my cases at that time. I remember him.
Mm-hmm. And how was he then, as you recall?
I remember my first time I ever met him. It was funny. I see this big African-American guy kind of dressed sloppy in court. There's no one else in there. And I was waiting for my detective to come in. And I finally had to ask him, I go, Foster? And he goes, yeah, it's me. And I didn't know. I thought he was a defendant there because the way he was dressed. He was undercover at the time.
Oh, he was purposely dressed down.
Correct.
Oh,
I mean, he was trying to look like a drug dealer at the time because that's what he was out doing undercover
that was
work.
His assignment?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
He was a polite man to me. He was very nice, but that's the limited interaction I ever had with him.
Yeah. Well, that's the timeline on Foster. As you can see, in 2000, he became a commander to 2013, and after that he became the deputy police chief. Well, actually, he was deputy police chief before then, but he's been in the department a long time. So let me ask you about the fact that, okay, you have this lag time. Now you got this guy McNeely coming in. Do you know this guy, this attorney?
Yeah, Mike.
You know Michael?
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell us about him.
He's a nice guy. Mike, I mean, he's a local attorney. He's been practicing probably 15, 20 years.
Okay.
He's an ex-DA. What was his connection to Foster and how he got Foster? I'm not sure about that. I haven't had a chance to ask him. But he's coming in on the case, and I think he's going to have a hard road ahead of him in this one.
Okay, so the question is, he says, and McNeely said in a Fresno Bee article, he says that he hopes that Foster will be able to prove that he is innocent before he is sentenced in October. You want me to read that again? He hopes that Foster will be able to prove that he is innocent.
Yeah, well, hope springs eternal.
We're both kind of chuckling here. Okay, how does that happen, Peter? How does he do that? Is that even possible? Is that just a crazy quote?
No, I mean, you could try to bring new evidence. I think he's probably going to be looking for a new trial. The problem he has is to get a new trial, you have to find some error in the underlying trial. And one of the biggest ones you always bring up is ineffective assistance of counsel. And so if this plays out the way it normally does, he's going to have to question the way Marshall Hodgkins conducted this trial. And if he does that, that may open up what they call attorney-client privilege. And then if that does, then Marshall Hodgkins is going to be able to say everything he talked to Foster about. And that's when we're going to find out about this deep undercover, things like that. So I think they're playing with fire if they challenge this verdict because it may open them up to a lot more evidence for the prosecutor.
McNeely will have to criticize Hodgkins in the way he handled the trial to say, look, he was incompetent in dealing with this issue, with that issue, with this, and this. And isn't that kind of off limits for attorneys?
Well, yes, for most of us it is. And this isn't a shot at Mike McNeely. Whenever you take an appeal, whenever you take over a case after a trial, one of the main bases for challenging a conviction is ineffective assistance of counsel. So you just have to do it. That's why a lot of guys don't do appeal work because you don't eat your own, as they say. People just don't like challenging other attorneys' jobs because it's easy in 20/20 hindsight to say you could have done this better, done that better. But until you're there doing it at the time, it's difficult.
Yeah, in baseball, if you're a pitcher and you hit a batter, baseball players have long memories. A year or two later, it could come back to haunt you. Okay, is it that way in the attorney business? If you criticize one attorney, it could come back to haunt you 6 months, a year, two later?
I'm not sure what the equivalent to a fastball under the chin would be, but yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of the same scenario.
Yeah,
though.
the long knives are going to come out on something like that, and that's why a lot of guys don't do it. First of all, it's not good for business, and then professionally, it's just, everybody's been in a position where you could be criticized for what you did, and it's just really not fair in certain circumstances. So that's why a lot of guys won't even practice appellate work.
McNeely, knowing what you know about him, do you think he's the type that will go in and criticize Hodgkins?
Well, the problem is once you sign on to do a job, you've got to, because you have to do your loyalties life with your client. You have a fiduciary duty to represent your client as best as you can. And if you see that you think that there may be ineffective assistance of counsel, then you're obligated to raise that. And so it's not a question of whether he would want to or not. It's once you sign on for the job, then you got to do it.
Yeah, okay. Going to take a break here. 436-MeTV option 11. We're at the bottom of the hour. Call in and weigh in on the Keith Foster situation. Back here in just a moment. Got an open line.
Take a look at this. Let's play. This is too hip for you. I'll slow it down. Let's play.
Watch all your favorite classic game shows on Buzzer TV, KVBC Digital Channel 13.7.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the KitchenAid appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Save big with KitchenAid. Right now, get up to a $1,000 prepaid MasterCard when you purchase select KitchenAid appliances. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Okay, back here on the program, I do want to roll a piece of videotape and ask you about Keith Foster. Let's roll the Foster walking in and out of court here, because I want to focus on him. He's got a lot of time to think about this. A lot of people have brought it to my attention that maybe, here's a guy that's been in law enforcement his entire life. He's well known. He's well known by the inmates as well as the general public. So when he's sitting around and thinking, I have to go to prison, do you think he's a flight risk?
Yeah, well, yes.
I'm not sure if he has an ankle bracelet, by the way. I just want to say that.
No, I don't think he does. I think he's a flight risk, and I don't know if it's an intelligent flight risk. And what I mean by that is he's under a lot of pressure right now. He's facing 25 years in federal prison. And when people are under that kind of pressure, they do stupid things. I mean, it's obviously he's shown that he's done some pretty dumb things in the past. So I could see him being a flight risk. More importantly, I'd be more concerned if I was his attorney of him being a suicide risk or of him seeking revenge on other people. I think that's the danger of leaving him out, frankly.
What do you mean seeking revenge on other people?
Well, I mean, his behavior, just like the paper said when they're questioning whether he's delusional or not, I don't know in this situation if he blames other people for the predicament he's in.
It sounds like he does.
Well,
because if you read today's article in the Bee, he says, I guess he was overheard saying the day after when he was riding in a car with one of the federal agents, he had blurted out, I have my family to blame for getting me into this. So it sounds like he's not taking responsibility. I don't know. I don't know. But.
Well, no, I think you're right. And what my concern would be is that given that he's blaming other people for it, I mean, these are officers, and whether you like it or not, police officers deal in a violent world. They deal with criminals all day. They carry guns. They're not used to, but a lot of them have shot people and killed people in the past. And so this isn't your normal average citizen. This is a guy who lives in a violent world who's under stress. And if he's blaming other people for things, that would be my concern. Now, whether that's justified, I mean, I don't know, but those are the type of things that I'd be concerned about if I was making decisions regarding what to do with the guy.
Yeah, we all know of what happened with the former tight end for the New England Patriots, Aaron Hernandez. He committed suicide in prison for, the crimes that he had committed. But it obviously was reported by the Bee as well that he's going to keep his pension, $93,000 a year in retirement. That's a pretty staggering figure for a guy that was convicted for 2 felonies. So the question is he going to be a target once he gets into prison, if he does go to prison?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was the first thing I thought of when they said that. Besides,
so how is he going to explain how he becomes a target, and how that money that he's getting would be used as extortion by other inmates?
Well, first of all, they're going to have to put him in some type of protective custody unit because he is an ex-officer. And so just for being an ex-police officer, he's going to be a target by rivals and people he's put in jail and other people that he hasn't put in jail just because he was a police officer. The way the money comes into play, though, is prison is a horrific place to be. And when they find out that he's making that kind of money, he's the target for extortion. You know, I've had clients tell me, they used to laugh about when I talked about prison life, about why you just can't leave people alone. But, I mean, they would tell me, you know, we'd pick a guy like you, meaning me, and say, we're going to have your mother bring us in drugs. And if she doesn't bring in drugs to us, we're going to rape you, we'll stab you, we'll kill you. And so it's just that type of intimidation. Well, when they find out that this guy's got $93,000, whether he gets it all or not, whether his divorce takes most of it, they don't care. They just know he's got money, and we want money. And so what they'll do is they'll tell him, you have to pay our family money. And if you don't pay our family money, we're going to target you. I mean, that's just how it works.
We're going to target you in prison? That
Absolutely.
We could target your family outside of prison?
Absolutely.
So it becomes a big problem for Keith Foster, the fact that this was even publicized.
No, and when you brought up Hernandez, I think he had the same problem. All these guys thought that he was a multimillionaire from his football days, and there's reports that he was in fights all the time because, guys, you're a target at that point. And so for Foster, having the money is maybe a good thing, but it may be a bad thing in the end.
Yeah, Aaron Hernandez, of course, right before all the problems began with him, before he was arrested, he had just signed a huge multi-million-dollar contract with the Patriots. He re-upped and he re-signed. I don't know what the figure was, but it was in the multi-millions of dollars. And so, you know, despite the fact that the contract became void, I guess, after his arrest, I mean, it's amazing how his pension just didn't become void. I know it's city code. It's part, not city code, but it's part of the city charter, I guess. Even if you get convicted, you get your pension. But I'm not sure. I think a lot of people were upset when they found out that Foster was going to get $93,000 a year for possibly sitting in a prison cell.
Yeah, I think you're going to see the city council take measures to change that aspect of the law. Like most things, when laws change, it's because something bad has happened in the past. The other interesting thing, I think, with his pension is how it's going to affect the judge. It technically is not supposed to affect him, but when you're considering a guy is facing from 0 to 25 years, it's not 0, but for our purposes it is, to 25 years, and you find out he's going to be getting $93,000 a year in pension, it would be hard for a judge not to take that into consideration and say, you know what, we're going to make you spend a few more years in prison before you get to enjoy that money. So that's going to be interesting.
What about Anthony Ishii, the federal judge? I'm not going to ask you to criticize him, but the article in the Beat today kind of alluded to the fact that he's, you know, the judge just said, okay, you're found guilty on 2 felony federal charges, walk out the door, and we'll see you back here in October. How could a judge do that? I know you're a lawyer, you probably don't want to criticize a federal judge, I understand that, but did you find that a little bit alarming to a certain extent?
Yeah, from my perspective, but in that respect, Ishii's been around forever. I mean, he was a state court judge. He got appointed to the federal bench maybe 20 years ago, so he's done it. It's not, I mean, it's his decision, but the input is not just his. There's a lot that goes into it. Pretrial services, what we'd call probation department, state court, they give recommendations. So you don't know exactly what he had to deal with. The other thing is, I have a hard time criticizing judges. My brother and my wife are a judge, for one thing, so I do have an interest in it. But the second thing, people don't realize, they literally make hundreds of decisions a day. and sometimes they're going to get it wrong. And, you know, so I can criticize him in that respect, that I think this was a wrong decision, but that doesn't, I don't think that's an indictment on him in general, because out of the 100 decisions he makes a day, if 99% of them are correct, then you got to give the guy credit. But I did find it strange that he left him out after being convicted.
Was it the wrong decision, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, it's like everything else, it's going to be 20/20 hindsight. If he goes out and does something stupid, if he tries to flee, then it was the wrong decision. But if he shows up for court on the day, he gets his sentence, and they take him into custody, then there's really no harm in it. He's not earning any time credits, so it's not going to get him out of prison earlier or later.
Who does a judge confer with or consult with when making a decision like this, whether or not to let him walk and come back or put him in protective custody until he's sentenced, or maybe even an ankle bracelet? Who does he talk to?
Well, what's going to happen, and this is why if he's a flight risk, you're not going to see it until a little later. They
get closer to the date?
To the sentencing date, because what they're going to do, and in state court they call it a probation report, what happens is the probation department interviews Mr. Foster. They interview a lot of other people involved in the case. They do background checks on him. And they prepare a report, and the report is forwarded to the judge and to the attorneys. And in that report, they're going to give their recommendation. And in federal court, it's much more difficult because they have what they call federal guidelines that they have to follow. So they have all these different factors in mitigation and aggravation they look at. And based on that, they're going to give the judge the recommendation. And that's when you really start to see how the client's going to react, because at this point, he's still hoping that they come out with a favorable recommendation for him that says, hey, give this guy a year, 2 years, whatever it is. If they come back and say, you know, we think 18, 19 years is what's appropriate, then that's when the panic sets in, because now you have a recommendation from the people in charge of making recommendations, which is not favorable to you.
Yeah, so that's when the panic is going to set in for Keith Foster.
Absolutely.
Do I go? But the other question is, I had a few guests talking about this in the past and saying, no, I don't think he's going to go anywhere, because if he doesn't have money, he's going to get money. He's going to get the pension. But can he collect that pension if he's in Mexico, if he's in Guadalajara, if he's in Tijuana, if he's in Brazil? Can he still collect that pension?
No, I mean, I guess you could direct deposit and they'd find out, but no, but that's thinking like a sane person. And these guys are under a lot of stress and they don't think like sane people necessarily. And so that's, I mean, if he flees, I'm not saying that's a smart move on his part. I think it's ridiculous because he's going to get picked up.
Is he going to live in a hut?
Yeah, he can't hide.
How's he going to collect the pension?
Well, you're right. And he can't hide that long, but the worrisome thing is these guys don't think like a normal person under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Or maybe they are under the circumstances, and the circumstances are dire circumstances.
Yeah, and you know, as you get closer to the date, September and then October, and you're facing 25 years, possibly, man, it's the blood pressure is going to go up, and then panic starts to set in, and you don't want to go to prison for 25. I mean, how old is this guy? How old is Foster? I forget, but he's going to be like, close to 80 years old if he gets out.
No, absolutely. Yeah, Foster's my age. He's 55, 56 years old.
Okay, so you're talking, 25 years. He's going to be close to 80 years old. So 436, MeTV option 11, if you want to call in and weigh in on Keith Foster. Back in just a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Whirlpool appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start, but you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Touch the new Whirlpool Ice Collection. It offers a modern style made to create an inspiring kitchen experience. Save big on this Whirlpool Black Ice or White Ice kitchen. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
We had made arrangements to sit down and meet with Deputy Chief Foster and his attorney for a really brief session, and it was for the purpose of reaffirming that his peace officer powers have been removed, to make arrangements for some additional police equipment to be obtained, to direct him to not have conversations with anyone that may be involved in this investigation. and then lastly, to make arrangements for him to be interviewed by Internal Affairs. And that has all been taken care of, and there were no other conversations involved.
Has he agreed to the interview?
At this point, that will be arranged through his attorney, and we will know at some point whether or not that occurs.
He remains on paid administrative leave?
He'll be on paid administrative leave until we can make a determination towards the end of next week.
All right, back here on the show with Peter Kapetan, and you're not giving legal advice today, so I guess that's why people are not calling in.
Exactly.
But if you want legal advice, you could. What number can you be reached at?
559-498-8000.
Yeah, I remember the last time you were here. Well, no, you've been here a few times, but the one occasion that you were here with Mark and giving free legal advice, oh my God, the phone's lit up like a Christmas tree.
And remember, it's free, so
I know.
you get what you pay for.
Well, what do you charge an hour, by the way?
Contingency fee.
You can't say on the air. Okay. 436 MeTV option 11. That was Jerry Dyer, by the way, before the trial started. Some comments from the police chief. Email questions that could foster broker an extradition with a favorable foreign country. Like, I don't know, pick a country. North Korea.
No.
Not really.
No, I don't know if they took his passport from him, but Keith Foster is not the level of fame that any country is going to be interested in brokering a deal with. I mean, for a foreign country to broker a deal with you, you have to have something to offer, and he has nothing to offer them.
Yeah. Another email question: does your guest feel that Foster could be housed out of state, maybe in a distant private prison, so nobody knows who he is?
No,
but they'll find out who he is.
Yeah. Oh, he could very well be, because he's in the federal system, so they can send him anywhere within the United States. But word travels fast. I mean, he's not going to be able to hide the fact that he's a law enforcement officer. They're going to know about it before he even reaches the prison that he's finally sent to.
Another email question here: is it possible that in a retrial could Foster plea and relinquish a pension and hefty money in exchange for, I don't know, maybe a lesser sentence? Let's say he says, okay, I give up my pension, I don't want it, but give me like 5 years. Could that happen?
No, not. I mean, I guess theoretically it could, but that's not something. Those are two separate systems, and the U.S. Attorney's Office isn't interested in what money he's going to be getting through his pension, and so I don't think that would be an appropriate term to negotiate off of. And the court doesn't care either way, and that the court's the final determiner of that.
Yeah. Caller, you're on the air with Peter Kapetan. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for the show. I'm a long-time Fresno resident and a former police officer outside of Fresno, and have a few friends that are retired Fresno PD detectives and whatnot. And my concern is that it's been told to me for many years that Foster was involved in this activity and that the department knew about it. And so it's troubling and it's concerning to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people, and I'm sure they've had that question raised. So anyway, I'd like to have you folks address it if you would.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I've been around 30 years, and so there's always rumors, and I'm not talking about Foster specifically here. I've heard all kinds of rumors regarding the Fresno Police Department, regarding Fresno politicians, regarding every level of government in Fresno. And so, I mean, I don't think it's appropriate to say unless you have actual evidence or facts regarding that. But I understand what you're saying, and I don't think. I believe what you tell me, that you've heard all kinds of rumors regarding them. But I mean, that's the dangerous thing, to start dealing with people's characters when you go on rumors. I mean, I think it's enough that you have a criminal conviction of the guy now, and I think that's suffice to say is what his character is going to be remembered as from now on.
All right, put up the picture of Keith Foster, and I want to read up a couple of lines here and go over some information. There he is right there, so keep that up there just for a minute. The jury deadlocked on 5 counts. Distributing oxycodone Foster used a cell phone to traffic. They acquitted him on that. The jury voted 7-5 not guilty. McNeely, his new attorney, says the deadlock is indicative of flaws in the trial. Well, obviously there were some flaws in the trial. I mean, the client and the attorney weren't even communicating properly. It seems, that's obvious. And of course, he plans to file a motion to acquit Foster. How do you file a motion? What does he have to put in the motion? Maybe you touched on that earlier. So he files a motion. You're going to read the motion. What's going to be in the motion? What's he going to put in there as to why he wants a new trial? He had a competent attorney. He had 12 jurors that made a decision. What do you put as an attorney in a motion that's going to overturn something?
Well, and I think that's the biggest one is the ineffective assistance of counsel, and I disagree with Mike in that this the acquittals or the hung juries, excuse me, is indicative that of his innocence. This isn't a case where you reach a verdict which is inconsistent, and what I mean by that is where, for example, there's two counts that are basically for the same thing, and they acquit him of one and convict him of the other. That's the type of case where you're saying, wait a minute, something's going on here. The jury has made inconsistent verdicts here. This isn't an inconsistent verdict. This is they just didn't find the evidence to convict him on the OxyContin charges.
Right. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air with Peter Kapetan.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering. You always, like you're talking about trying to appeal a decision. I mean, don't defense attorneys and their clients, usually it's not a norm for them. I mean, obviously they're not going to be in agreement with what the jury came out with in terms of how they decided. And I've always asked myself, how can a defendant go through an entire trial, and then at the end of it all, though he doesn't like the verdict, he comes back and he says, "Well, I didn't have adequate defense. My attorney wasn't good enough for me." And why didn't he come out and say that during the trial and say, "Hey, Your Honor, Mr. Ishii, Judge Ishii, I don't have adequate representation." And so why doesn't he do that during the trial rather than after?
Well, first of all, you got to let the process play out, okay? And secondly, you got to understand attorneys are like everyone else. I mean, you've got plumbers who come to your house. Some are great and some do a terrible job. And attorneys are no different. There are attorneys who are very good at what they do and some that are horrible. I wouldn't wish him on my worst enemy. Marshall is, I think, a very good attorney at what he does. But the other thing is, even if you're a very good attorney, you can make mistakes sometimes. And so the appeals process isn't a waste of time. I mean, you could have had a bad attorney. I mean, there's cases where attorneys have actually fallen asleep during trial. And obviously the man didn't get...
Really?
Oh, absolutely. There's all kinds of cases and that happens. And they didn't get effective representation. Or you could have a good attorney who just made a mistake during the trial. I don't see that happening here, and I'm not accusing Marshall of that at all. I think just the opposite. But so there's nothing unusual about an appeal, and as you said, appeals are normal. It's just in this case, I think they're going to have a hard time.
Yeah. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air. Peter Kapetan's waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you just give the guy not a break, because he looks guilty to me. And the judge and everybody, they want to be lying about his trial the first time. Let's just give him life.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was a little hard to understand you. The phone's a little warbly, but I think you said about giving him life. You can't do it. They've got guidelines, and he's facing up to 25 years in federal court.
Yeah, and I want to mention this quickly and then go to break real quick, because I want to change topics just for the last couple of minutes, and that is reading various comments in the Fresno Bee from other local attorneys from what I've seen. What do you think of some of those opinions that have come? I'm not going to mention names, but some have suggested that it might be easier than you think to file a motion for a new trial and have these two felonies dropped and just start all over again, based on the incompetence of Hodgkins, based on the fact that there was miscommunication, based on the fact that this trial from the get-go, you did not have a cohesive unit between client and attorney.
Well, and that's what I said is going to be interesting. If that's going to be the theory of the case, that Marshall Hodgkins presented it incorrectly in his opening statement, then that I think is going to open up the attorney-client privilege, and he's going to be able to say what occurred. And that's the danger here, is that a lot of times
some have suggested it would be easier than one might think. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, no, I agree with that. It depends how it plays out. If it plays out that Marshall Hodgkins really did just pull that out and brought it up without talking to the client about it, then I think that is. But I just would have, I find that very hard to believe.
Yeah, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. 436 MeTV option 11. Change topics for the last couple of minutes and talk about, well, the guy that testified yesterday. Back in a moment.
If you have a need to promote your business or event, please consider MeTV Fresno for your next campaign. MeTV reaches over 100,000 of your potential customers in the Fresno area every single week. Plus, you can rest assured that your commercial is running in the greatest family-friendly programs of all time. MeTV Fresno delivers a strong, loyal audience ready to buy, and your campaign will cost a fraction of what you're paying for your advertising now. Call me today to find out how affordable MeTV is at 905-1925.
Back here with Peter Kapetan. Since you're an attorney, I know you've been following this too. What do you make of the testimony by James Comey, the former FBI director, yesterday saying that, look, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, lied when it came to the probe into the Russian connection into our election?
Frankly, I thought it was a big nothing, the entire hearing. And I don't think he said he lied about the Russian probe. I think what he was saying he lied about was
Michael Flynn.
Yeah, and the reasons why. And he offered that more of as an opinion. What I find sad about this whole thing is that depending on what side of the political spectrum you're on, you saw a different investigation being conducted or a different questioning. People who are pro-Trump came out with good things pro-Trump. People who are against him came out with things against him. And it's amazing that people can't look at the testimony and properly evaluate it in a neutral fashion, frankly.
So should I evaluate it in a neutral fashion? Has Donald Trump done anything to obstruct justice? I mean, I heard one senator say yesterday, instead of trying to derail the investigation, you ought to be promoting the investigation and throwing these people out of your cabinet or out of your administration that have connections to Russia.
Well, and as everybody, I'm concerned if the Russians are trying to tamper with our elections. I just don't think that they've shown anything, any collusion between the Trump administration and the Russians. And what I find unfathomable is people saying the Russians are trying to tamper with our elections. They've been trying to tamper with our elections, and we try to tamper with them. I mean, that's par for the course.
Yeah, we don't have time to take the call, do we? No, Kerry's saying no. So sorry, we'll have to take that call at some other time. But come back again. Bring your brother Mark. Always good to have you, Peter.
Thank you very much. Always fun to be here.
I know.
Thank you.
The calls started coming in late.
Yes, they did.
Hey, phone number real quick in case somebody wants to contact.
559-498-8000.
Okay, Peter Kapetan, thank you. Have a good weekend. Back here Monday with Rick Bentley. Have a wonderful, safe weekend.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the KitchenAid appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Save big with KitchenAid. Right now, get up to a $1,000 prepaid MasterCard when you purchase select KitchenAid appliances. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
The Ballad of Andy and Barney Andy and Barney were lawmen, bravest you ever did see. Warned every crook in the record book to stay out of Mayberry. They were the law.
Yes, they were the law, and they didn't know fear.
The Andy Griffith Show.
I guess to sum it up, you could say there's 3 reasons why there's so little crime in Mayberry. There's Andy, and there's me, and baby makes 3.
Now on MeTV Fresno.
If you have a need to promote your business or event, please consider MeTV Fresno for your next campaign. MeTV reaches over 100,000 of your potential customers in the Fresno area every single week. Plus, you can rest assured that your commercial is running in the greatest family-friendly programs of all time.